Yo, what up guys, I'm Sammy and welcome back to the Soul Drop. And this is my first impressions look on the Peak Taichi Supreme. So Peak, if you guys didn't know, is a Chinese company and they actually make some pretty nice quality basketball shoes. If you guys didn't know, also they used to sign Tony Parker. And of course he's not in the NBA anymore, so they discontinued his line. And I got this shoe in because it intrigued me. It actually has a drop-in midsole and it actually also reminds me a little bit of the Kobe 9. Not only because of the drop-in midsole, but also because of like how it's shaped and stuff, you know what I mean? Like the heel, you know, it's a pretty wide heel, and just like how it's shaped, it reminds me a lot of the Kobe 9 as well. So yeah, if you guys do want to cop it, try to leave in the free link in description box. It is available over at Kickzone. The price does range from 115 bucks to 135 to 140 bucks, which of course is great, you know, depending on the colorway of course. So if you guys do choose to get this shoe, it does help me out if you buy it through the affiliate link in the description box. And as always, thank you guys so much for all the support. But yeah, let's get it started right off with the traction. So with this traction pattern, we have a circle pretty much, and it starts at the ball of your foot and it circles out on itself. The Peak logo is right over here, and also we have some herringbone on the lateral side of the shoe as well, right? So how does the traction feel? It actually feels pretty dang nice. It surprised the hell out of me. So I tried these on, and of course, you know, just trying it on my wood floors, it has a very nice bite. And it surprised me because I didn't really think it was gonna be that good. And also the grooves are really thick, right? But yeah, because the rubber compound seems good, the bite seems really nice so far, which I like of course. And also the squeak is pretty dang loud. There's a nice loud high-pitched squeak, which of course has nothing to do with performance. But if you like to have a nice squeak like me, this shoe has got you covered. And also, like I said, the grooves are really thick and the rubber's pretty dang hard, you know? So I feel like you should be fine on the outdoor court. It seems like it'll be very durable. So that's also a good thing. One downside, however, it does seem like it is picking up a little bit of dust. I don't know if it's coming out on camera, but I was walking around my apartment, of course. And yeah, my apartment, you know, there's dust, there's dog hair. So it is a little bit dusty on my floors, right? So when I first got it, it seemed to be, you know, biting really well, but I was walking around a little bit and seemed to be picking up that dust, and it was starting to slide around just a tiny bit. So of course, you know, my wood floors have a different finish than the actual basketball court, so we have yet to see if it actually does have you know, bad dust performance. But just right now it seems to be picking up a little bit of dust, which kind of sucks. But overall, I am very excited to try these shoes out because the traction seems really good, right? So there's that. Moving on to the heel to toe transition, actually feels pretty dang smooth for a drop-in midsole, right? So one thing that I like about this shoe a little bit better than the Kobe 9 is that the Kobe 9 is pretty boot-like, especially with the high top, right? But also with the EM material. You see all this rubber and all this plastic, right? So here in the heel, when you're doing heel dominant strides, even just walking but also running down the court, it felt pretty clunky here in the heel, which I didn't like too much, right? It's not a huge deal, it wasn't a deal breaker, but it's just something that kind of, you know, didn't feel super nice to me, you know? But here in the Peak Taichi Supreme, first of all, I mean, it is pretty much the exact same, right? We have this rubber, we have this plastic as well, but look, like, it's super freaking soft here. Not only at the edge here, but also like on the bottom of the shoe, like where the outsole is, of course. So that part is actually really soft, which is weird because if you look at the like the Kobe 9, also like most other shoes with a drop-in midsole, it's pretty stiff here. Look, right? There's no give. But with the Taichi Supreme, this is really freaking soft. So combining that with the drop-in midsole, which, you know, the foam is really soft, it actually feels not that clunky here in the heel, you know what I mean? So it feels pretty nice. And then coming here into the forefoot, we actually have a little bit of a curved shape, you know what I mean? So overall pretty smooth, kinda, you know, it's not the smoothest, you know what I mean, but it does feel pretty smooth. Has a little bit more of a flatter shape than I would like, but it's not terrible, right? But one thing that definitely helps with that is, look at that, right? So of course, underneath the drop-in, we do have this plastic plate, and we do have a pretty large area of the midfoot covered with this plastic, and it kind of comes over here into the forefoot with this kind of like curved shape, right? So yeah, of course, torsion support is good, and also with this shape, it does give it a nice, not super springy feel, but it kind of springs back into place a little bit, you know what I mean? So with all that combined, the torsion support is okay, you know what I mean? And also it has a good amount of forefoot flex, so it's like super easy to flex and it's very flexible, you know what I mean? Just like the Kobe 9, right? The Kobe 9 also, look at that. super duper easy to flex, literally. Look at that, you know what I mean? And okay torsion support, so that feels pretty similar. It's just smoother here in the heel, of course. And just look at this, right? This, of course, is this shoe doesn't have the drop-in, right? The drop-in's outside. Look at this. Isn't this the crazy? That's the craziest. That's crazy. You know what I mean? So all that kind of like structural support from the actual sole of the shoe, like on the bottom of your foot, is coming from the actual drop-in midsole. So now moving on to the cushioning setup. So yeah, as far as like tech specs go, I apologize if I'm wrong. Kickzone on their website, usually they have like tech specs, but for this shoe they didn't. So I was like, you know, searching on the web and there wasn't really any type of tech specs for this shoe. And also I couldn't really find this shoe on other websites either, which is interesting. But anyways, the drop-in midsole, it does say what the foam is using. So here in the heel it says Peak Taichi, right? And Peak Taichi is really nice. I actually tried Peak Taichi, like their regular shoe, like it's kind of like a running inspired shoe way back then. Super duper soft, very very comfortable, right? And also they are saying it has P ultralight, so I believe maybe they are using two different types of foam. I apologize, I'm not super familiar with Peak technology, but I'm guessing they are using two foam types in this drop-in, which, you know, I'm guessing because also it is, you know, two colors for this drop-in, right? But I try to feel a difference between like the different colors and it doesn't really feel that different, you know what I mean? So I apologize if I'm wrong, but I'll tell you guys how it feels. So yeah, it feels really, really low to the ground. Like it has amazing core feel, just like, you know, Kobe. You know, Kobe's have amazing core feel, like the Kobe 8, Kobe 9, you know what I mean, Kobe 11. And it feels pretty much the exact same as far as the core feel goes, right? However, if you guys remember, the Kobe 9 was using, you know, Lunarlon. Lunarlon isn't super nice. It's just soft. And then, you know, once you kind of like bottom it out, it's just dead. You know what I mean? There's no rebound back. It's not super plush either, especially once you break it in, you know what I mean? When you first get it, it's like kind of soft, you know what I mean? But it's not that nice, right? But with this drop-in, it has a nice kind of like soft feel with really good core feel, right? But also it has like a nice little rebound back. It's kind of like, kind of bouncy, not super bouncy, you know what I mean? Like the 8085 Ultra, those are super duper bouncy. But with this, it just has like a subtle kind of like rebound back, which feels way better than, you know, like the Kobe 8 or the original Kobe 8 and the original Kobe 9, you know what I mean? So that feels nice. Also another plus, of course, with a drop-in midsole is that your foot is right on top of the foam. So there is no strobe board or anything like that. So literally your foot is right on top of the foam and it's really, really soft, which is great, right? One thing I don't like about it, however, is the texture of the foam. Maybe, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just the inherent properties of this actual foam, you know, like Peak Taichi or whatever they're using, but it's actually kind of slippery, you know what I mean? Because usually a drop-in midsole with this type of foam, you know, like the Kobe 9, the Kobe 8, the annoying thing is that, you know, when you put the shoe on, it kind of grabs your sock, you know, it has like kind of like a sticky texture towards like your sock, like that cotton material, right? And it has a nice lockdown. You know what I mean? It feels really, really good for lockdown, of course, which I like in most drop-in midsole setups. But this is actually the first time where I felt like the foam is actually kind of slippery feeling, you know? Like my foot is kind of like sliding with my sock around inside of the shoe. And also this shoe is like kind of wide, which we'll get into in fit. So that's kind of annoying, but we'll have to see on the overall lockdown. But maybe, you know, once my foot gets sweaty, maybe the sweat will make it a little bit stickier. I don't know, but that's something that I don't like. But the overall cushioning setup actually feels really nice. We'll have to see on the impact protection, however, you know, when I'm, you know, doing really hard landings. Hopefully my foot doesn't, you know, bottom out the cushion and hurt my feet. But overall feels really nice, especially for guards. It's a nice, subtle kind of like bounce, nice subtle, very little bit of compression, you know what I mean? But also with really good court feel, right? So yeah, it feels really, really nice if you like those types of things, right? So there is the cushioning setup there. Moving on to the upper. So the upper is also really, really crazy, right? So they are using kind of like a lino weave material pretty much. And it's really, really soft. Right, especially here on top of your foot, you can see just how open it is. The ventilation is insane in the shoe as well. There are some underlaying materials too, but yeah, the ventilation is really good. It's really thin, but also it doesn't stretch at all. And overall, it comforts your foot extremely well. It's just a really comfortable upper, like especially here on top of your toes. And then we have, of course, like this V shape with this synthetic material, and then kind of like at the edge of the toe, we have a little bit more of the material filled in, or pretty much the entire material filled in, so that you have better rigidity. You know, you have a little bit better support, but also you have better durability, especially if you're doing toe drags, of course. So I actually like what they did here, but it definitely does have like a softer feel, you know what I mean? And then coming here to the midfoot, you know, it gets a little bit stiffer, just a tiny bit. You can see some underlaying materials as well that are glued, but there are some open spots as well for better ventilation. And then for the tongue, it's like this mesh material, right? And there are some targeted pads on top of the tongue, so that, you know, when you tighten the laces, it doesn't hurt the top of your foot if you're really cranking down on laces, which of course is nice. But you know, there's not really any padding, you know what I mean? It's very, very minimal for the padding. I do like the, you know, tongue material, like the lining material, you know what I mean? It has this kind of like grid, like square pattern on it. It's also an independent tongue, which I'm not a huge fan of. Hopefully the tongue doesn't move too much when I'm playing in it. And then here in the ankle area, we also have very minimal padding, you know what I mean? Like on the sides, like very minimal. Where your Achilles is, it gets a little bit more, you know, a little bit thicker, but you know, not super well padded. And then in the heel, we have like this external heel counter, right? And it's like this clear plastic, and it kind of comes up at the back of the heel, but also connects all the way here into the forefoot as well for lateral containment, you know what I mean? So yeah, the overall quality actually feels really nice. It doesn't feel really cheap at all. It's thin, it's very well ventilated, and it conforms to my foot very well, right? Now, it doesn't feel super supportive, however. So I feel like if you're looking for a very supportive feeling upper, also supportive feeling shoe, probably not the best option, you know, but I do like how it feels so far for me personally. So there's the upper there. Moving on to the fit. So I went true to size, and this shoe fits a little bit roomy. So as far as the length goes, it's actually a little bit long, right? So I definitely feel like I could have gone down half a size. And also it is pretty wide, which is weird. You usually don't see that in basketball shoes. A lot of shoes nowadays are extremely pointy, extremely narrow, but this actually has a wide forefoot here. Look at this. And then of course it gets a little bit, you know, pointier here in the like at the edge of the toe, but it's also still not super like narrow. And actually I have a good amount of space, especially where my pinky toe is. I can literally just go like this with my pinky toe. So it's a wide fit. Also here in the toe box, it's not super roomy, however, which I like. But one thing that doesn't help with the overall fit, and also like kind of like the lockdown here in the forefoot, is, you know, the slipperiness of this texture, you know, for the drop in. So again, we'll have to see on that. But yeah, not my favorite though. It doesn't feel terrible. It doesn't feel like terribly wide or terribly roomy or anything like that. But I feel like, you know, combining, you know, the slipperiness with this and it being a little bit wide, we'll have to see on that, right? But of course, if you like a wider, a little bit looser of a fit, then you should be fine going true to size. But if you want something a little bit more snug, then go down half a size, right? So there's the fit there. Moving on to the support and lockdown. I mean, it feels like everything's covered though, right? As far as the lateral containment goes, you got all the necessary lateral counters. First of all, from the actual drop in midsole, you have this raised side wall, especially here in the heel, right? But in the forefoot, you know, it does come up a good amount as well. But in the heel, look at how much it cups up. It's kind of crazy, you know what I mean? So that's there. And also on the outside, we got this plastic piece, which I said that, you know, you're covered there as well. So lateral containment feels like it's going to be good. But overall lockdown, again, it doesn't feel great, you know, with the slipperiness and also with how wide the shoe is, you know what I mean? So we'll have to see on that. Also, lateral stability feels good. There's really no outrigger, which is kind of weird, but it is a really low to the ground feel, and also with the wide kind of like fit and also wide base, lateral stability feels really good as well. And also I'm not really experiencing any type of heel slippage, right? But now moving on to the weight of the shoe. I mean, this shoe feels extremely lightweight. Yeah, 11.85 ounces is kind of crazy, you know. Modern hoop shoes are extremely lightweight. Very curious. This is the shell, right? This is the shell of the shoe. It's 8.85 ounces. And then this is like what 3.1 ounces, right? So extremely lightweight. Let's check the Kobe 9. 11.1 ounces, right? But I guess, you know, Kobe 9s, Kobe's are usually really lightweight. So yeah, it feels very lightweight. It feels low to the ground, but it does feel a little bit, it doesn't feel super, you know, like responsive because of like the sloppiness in the forefoot for me right now, right? And now moving on to the aesthetics, I actually really like it. This colorway looks great, and there are some like actually really good looking colorways out on like the Kicksun website, which, you know, I feel like Chinese companies just kill it with the colorways, you know? So tell us what you guys think of the aesthetics down in the comment section below. So wrapping things up, yeah, these shoes feel really nice. The traction feels like it'll be top tier. The cushion feels really nice. The only thing that's kind of annoying me, kind of bothering me is, you know, the lockdown with, you know, the slipperiness of the texture and the wide fit, you know what I mean? But other than that, it's feeling really good. And I feel like, you know, if you do have a wide foot, then of course this shoe would fit you better than for me, right? But yeah, I am very excited to try these out, however. So anyways, that about concludes my first impressions look on the Peak Taichi Supreme. Again, if you guys do want to cop a, try to leave me the feeling link in the description box. But that's it. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.